welcome. Today's topic is a very interesting topic, but unfortunately overground workers, as they are called very loosely as OGWs, are an accepted norm today in the civil society. Without truly understanding its impact, role and relevance to perpetuating the violence which is happening in Kashmir. I'll start by saying that terrorism is a combination of two words, terror and ism. Terror is perpetuated by terrorists, and a terrorist is a commodity which is, if killed, has got no relevance. Very easy to identify, is an expendable commodity. But the harder one to pin down is the aspect of ism, which is driven by a group which is called as overground workers, enjoying all the facilities of the democratic rights which is available in our country and certain developed world. They sit well placed, ensconced, enjoy good livelihood, but they continue to drive disgruntled youth onto the path of violence. The OGWs are well known for providing logistics to the terrorist, the sustenance, movement, support mechanism. But today, I would like you to delve and think about two very important layers of this OGW network. The first one, which I always call them as white-collar terrorists, Safed Posh Dahshatgard, are the ones who are prominent members of the civil society. A neighborhood shopkeeper, a government servant, a person running a business whose children study in good schools. They themselves draw handsome salaries and profits. Their brothers and sisters are also involved in government jobs or settled across the country, even abroad. They are the ones who are more like factory of terrorists. These people identified from the young, gullible youth, the vulnerable ones, either due to drug issues, poor in studies, have no mission and scope in life, challenges at home. Once having identified such a person, he instigates his mind through various materials and form, either through religious lines or the lines of separatism, or the most common factor called victimhood. Having identified this young man and having instigated him, thereafter he puts him onto a path of initiation of one terrorist act. It may be a grenade lobbing, it may be a killing of a principal, a school teacher, a woman, it may be firing at an unarmed traffic policeman, killing of a non-local laborer, or even a shopkeeper who was a neighborhood pharmacist. Once he crosses this path of no return, the only way this terrorist, this youth, ends up dead. And this death and the loss of Kashmiri blood warms the heart of this white-collar terrorist and his mentors and controllers across, because it fulfills two agendas. The first is the same gentleman, the prominent member of the society or the mohalla or the village, goes to attend the janaza or calls on the family who's lost the terrorist, the youth, the young one, at times the only breadwinner, the only brother of 4 to 5 sisters with old parents, as a concerned citizen. But that is a place he prays on the next target, the next youth from this entire process to become the next terrorist. For this, he gets paid well. He ensures that the peace does not return into Kashmir Valley. It ensures there's a conflict economy which continues to be nurtured. And he draws his eminence through this cycle of violence. The second one to benefit is our inimical elements across border. It allows this one killing to keep the pot boiling in the international forums. It also ensures that the peace and stability in Kashmir Valley remains a distant dream. But most of all, the most important factor which they achieve, they use the Kashmiri blood, not their own. And Kashmir is a tool to strike at the very idea of India. The second layer today in the OGW and fast evolving, the silent ones, concerned citizens, are the Kashmiri diaspora, duly supported by army of networks. This diaspora settled abroad, lives in plush houses, great business, well paid through the ISI. They continue to type out the fastest finger and target the youth through the latest equipment in the hand, that is the mobile. And the process of online radicalization, I call them as the digital radicalization groups. By the way, they are adequately supported by well-read, educated members, at times doctors, professionals, people who are in the teaching job, educationists, businessmen, who on this side of the LC, in Kashmir Valley, have got all the privileges available to them in the world. And they continue to poison the mind of the youth through online chats, calibrated debates, using the platforms such as Clubhouse, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and the likes. They don't get harmed in any way. The person who gets harmed is the low-end spectrum of a young man. I only ask you that Mehran, with his 18, 19 years of age, the terrorist, the so-called terrorist, a young man of age of 16 years, who fired on a policeman, unarmed policeman, with a pistol. What worldview they have at this age to pick up a gun? This 2-day seminar, ladies and gentlemen, is important to bring into space, to discuss and debate the role of the overground workers, which while the police picks them up, puts them behind bars for a few months, maybe a year, they come back as a curse on the society to continue to ensure the cycle of violence remains elusive to be controlled by the security forces and the government. This debate needs to go public. You need to speak out your mind and in the most candid form. Until unless the mother of a terrorist, the father of a prospective terrorist does not step out and ask this prominent civil society member that why is it your son, your brother has not picked up the gun. Ladies and gentlemen, the government can only limit itself to killing terrorists. Year on year, we can continue to kill terrorists. Very, very easy task for security forces. But the role which you and the civil society has to play is the most important role to expose these people who sit amongst us, live amongst us, call them out and ensure that the cycle of violence ends and peace and prosperity and the glory of Kashmir and Kashmir people returns to what it was many centuries back. Today amongst us, besides you all, I need to welcome Jan Saha and Jan Bhatt, who have been the corps commanders here. People, eminent personalities, people with great intellectual prowess, and I have seen them. They're possibly one of the most concerned people for the Kashmiri cause. Thank you so much, sir, for coming here and blessing us. I'm sure we'll be more empowered with the knowledge which you discharge to us. So let's have a good debate, good discussion, and let's take this discourse to the public, to the common man, and hope that this cycle of violence starts turning back to the cycle of peace. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Jai Hind.
Good morning, Jai Hind. General Pandey, GOC 15 Corps. Firstly, my heartfelt thanks to you that you have given me an opportunity to come here again to the valley and meet all my friends. And most importantly, the green shoots which had started at that time, which I proposed and you actively started, now they have sprouted to such a large number. I am aware that I am also addressing my officers of 15 Corps in Victor Force, Kilo Force, 28 and 19 deaths. And what you see today here in this hall, this was not possible just a few years back. I am proud of where and how Kashmir is moving. And when I see all the youth of Kashmir, I see, and what I heard yesterday and what I have been hearing today, it gives me assurance, it invigorates me for the future of our Kashmir and through that of India. All of you are brave young men who have decided to cross the gate, come into BB Cant and stand shoulder to shoulder with us to fight this menace of OGWs, which is more dangerous than the terrorists. Before I go further, I would first tell you about, all of us have been talking of this overground workers. Where did this word originate? When I was a young officer, in fact when I was under training, this was the first time we heard this word called overground and underground. I'm talking of 78. And we used to call our friends from the northeast, even officers who were training with us, cadets, undergrounds. And that is why were they called undergrounds? Because there was a lot of insurgency going on in the northeast. And the overground workers were at that time the people who were supporting them. But this term goes back to to 46, 47, 48, until 1960, when the British fought their first successful counter-insurgency operations in Malaya. The 6th Gurkha battalions handled it, and that is the time when Templar put in this word, because these terrorists were operating not from the villages, not from the squatters which were there in Malaya, but they used to go into the jungles. They used to have their underground caves or their underground bunkers where they used to hide. So anybody who was supporting them other than who was there underground was called the overground worker. And what was done to separate this fish from the water at that time, a very drastic thing which is not possible today, was that more than 4 lakh people, a large number of villages were shifted from their location to different places. They were fenced and controlled by the military to keep the OGWs away from the terrorists, from the insurgents. And of course, in 14 years, 13 years, this counter-terrorism operation succeeded. This insurgency was defeated effectively. Today we have the same overground workers here in Kashmir. And if you open Wikipedia, it does not talk of Templars' world in Malaysia, it does not talk of the Northeast, it only talks of Kashmir. And they say the overground worker is a terminology brought by the police. It is not. They have picked up this term, and an overground worker who was previously just providing basic logistics and intelligence maybe, has now become bigger and bigger. He has become the ideological source of the threat which is there to the insurgency. For the military, and which I mean the entire security forces structure in Kashmir, and most successfully in Kashmir because we have been all together, we have been able to very well handle kinetic operations. And I see it as a success that now we are talking of beyond kinetic, which is much more important and much more difficult. That is the battle of narratives, the battle of the mind. And in this battle of narratives and in this battle of mind, it is you, the youth, you, the civil society, who have to help us to win this battle. And you have to not win it for us, you have to win it for yourselves. You have to win it for the people of Kashmir. All of us have talked of overground workers, who are they, where are they, but all of the challenges, and that is the part which my panel will handle, is how do we combat them. We know where they are in all walks of life, from education to the legal system, to the religious system, in polity, but most challenging is how do we handle it. What are the tools we have to handle it? One of the basic tools, and maybe at the tactical level, is the use of PSA, which some of my friends here have suffered because of. But you have to realize in India, in this nation, because we are a democracy, we only use democratic tools. We do not go beyond our constitution and our law. And that is a restraint. And that is what an OGW takes advantage of. He survives in that grey, and he manages that thin line between a terrorist and an OGW. He takes advantage of it because we as defense forces are committed to only use violent methods or kinetic methods against somebody who is holding a weapon. Not against anybody. Not against an ideological enemy, an ideological warrior. And that is where our challenge is.
A very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, General Officer Commanding Chinar Corps, Lieutenant General Bhatt, former Chinar Corps Commander, very distinguished gathering over here, people highly experienced from the Army, from the police, CRPF, and our very dear friends from Kashmir who belong to Kashmir, whether residing or not is quite immaterial as long as their heart is here. And I suppose, as the Corps Commander pointed out, you are here to bring Kashmir back to genuine peace. We are here, as we all know, to discuss this topic called overground workers. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that if you were to drop if you were to drop one drop of watercolor black and onto that one drop of watercolor white, within no time you will find it turns to gray. Unless it is checked, it turns to gray. You can try the experiment with oil color, you can try it with paint, do what you will. Unless you keep the definition between black and white, the gray will take charge. And as we see a semblance of peace returning to Kashmir, we are seeing the expansion of the gray. And that, I think, is, topical, and I'm so glad that you have chosen to strike at this gray of the OGW, because you've done your bit, I think, in handling the black so far. You see the varying definitions, and particularly it comes from the police, because we got to admit it that the term OGW is quite unique to this Union Territory now. It is not there in the Northeast. This is a coinage of the police, which other security forces have picked up. Why was it coined? Perhaps at the end of the discourse from my very distinguished panelists, you'll get a sense why it has come about. But things like anyone who supports militants, an unarmed militant, and there was yet another interesting definition. The OGW, if the militant is the fish, OGW is the water on which the fish survives. So you see the wide array. Isn't it so ironical that anyone who supports militants is an OGW, but anyone who supports the cause of militancy is not classified as an OGW? Won't it get more grey than this? I quite recollect an incident after exiting from 15 Corps physically. Mentally you never exit 15 Corps. After exiting 15 Corps physically, as Deputy Chief, I had come to Kashmir with a group of industrialists and academicians. So we were on our way to Toothmari Gali, 17 Brigade Headquarters. En route we stopped at 32 RR, not for breakfast, I promise you, it was because of some stone pelting that was going on. We stopped at a COB. So here was this young company commander of 32 RR who was asked this question by Professor Mishra of IIT Bombay. Professor Mishra asked him, Major, what is your, these terrorists must be a real problem for you. What did this Major have to respond? He said, Professor, a terrorist is the last of my problems, because if I see him, he won't survive. But people who come around pelting stones, people who come around vilifying, vitiating the minds of my people, I really don't know how to handle them. He did give a solution. I don't go into that because it's not in the chart, in the scope of activity. Today we can talk about it over tea. I bring it out to state that actually it gets complex when we enter this grey zone. And as military people particularly, frankly, this is not something that we are adept at. So it's just as well that you have picked up this topic to talk about it, discuss it. And as the Corps Commander brought out a little while back, it has only got much more complicated with white-collar terrorists, white-collar, the Corps Commander calls them white-collar terrorists, the DGP calls them white-collar jihadis, and here we are discussing them under the broader canvas of OGW. So look at the confusion that persists even on this. So fundamentally, I think, finally we seem to be giving a correction to that so-called understanding of OGW from anyone who supports militants to anyone who supports militancy. And I'm glad that you're giving this correction, because unless you take care of militancy, militant is only a small element of the larger sense of militancy, if you will. So I think that is important. I do not need to tell you what all an OGW does, starting from recruiting the local terrorists to facilitating infiltration of the foreign terrorists, to being their eyes, ears, everything. And all of us in our times here have seen how they have operated here. The names of the likes of Fayaz of Lathpura, Manzoor of Lekpura, Yusuf from Gadura are all well known, who have supported and operated on the operational side. But in this gathering, where I find almost 50% are from the security forces, let us also be candid and upright to accept that a whole lot of these OGWs are also our sources. You may recall, in the middle of the first decade of 2000, we had this gentleman who would provide intelligence. I call him a gentleman, actually not the right term, who would provide intelligence on infiltrating groups coming in from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir into our Kashmir. And the same person, a few days later, gets apprehended carrying some terrorists of all the people in the ambassador car of a very senior police officer. If you wish, I can disclose the name. We all have lived through this, haven't we? So the point which I am trying to make in a much lighter vein is, I think as security forces, we need to take the call, and the point in a lighter vein is, within the circles of the security forces, it is often said that if you start arresting all the sources, you will probably drop down the terrorism by at least 70 to 80%. So I leave that thought with you, even though it is said in lighter vein, but there is a sense in what is being said. Now, how OGWs are enrolled, again I'm sure the speakers will speak, but sometimes, as the Corps Commander was bringing out, you may have heard of the famous Yunus Bakery of Tral. A fellow who was just running a bakery in the middle of Tral, initially coerced into providing food, eventually gets fascinated by the glamour of the terrorist and the gun, chooses to start supporting till he actually becomes one and gets eliminated. So, I mean, there can be many ways, but then there are definite trends which I would expect that my panelists would be covering, like some groups like the Jaish probably prefer to work with their old associates, and Hizbul probably prefers to operate with friends and relatives. So how you are kind of working on them in your own areas of responsibility, I think requires a deeper knowledge of this. Should somebody want, we can talk about it more when we have the Q&A session at the end. I will not go beyond the time defined to me, but what I would like to bring out, like for example, if we were to go by the media, in the month of October, about 900 OGWs were detained. I would like to ask, how many were eventually prosecuted? And why are they not being prosecuted? I think here again we have to face another reality. Whether it is the army, whether it is the other security forces, i.e. CRPF and JKP, over a period of time, as we have focused so much on this kinetic counter-terrorist, counter-militant operations, somewhere that good old skill and art of good investigation and good prosecution case has slipped out of our hands. So therefore, we are not able to make strong enough prosecution cases. Added to this, not to forget the fact that there is a fair amount of white collar in the legal fraternity that operates over here, who are there to make sure that even if you make a strong enough prosecution case, it is met with so much of resistance that it doesn't probably see its logical conclusion. And finally, I think as Indian Army, I think all along we have seen ourselves not as a force, but as an institution in Kashmir. And I would like to make this distinction. Why? Because in our minds, the distinction is, as an institution, people have expectations from you. So if you make a mistake, we do not mind admitting a mistake, as we are seeing even currently in the Northeast. We have seen it in the past in Kashmir. And if we have made a mistake, we expect a little bit of protest, and we would like to deal with the protest. Unlike a force, unlike a terrorist that will kill one of you, will kill one of us, but will have no regrets will have no expectations of a protest or anything else. On that note, I will stop here and hand you over to our first of the panelists, who will probably help us to demystify from all that we have just been spoken about. He's a very well-read person with a number of books to his credit. So it's over to you, Mr. Bashir.
Respected Jan Sahab, Jan Bhatt, ladies and gentlemen, as all good events also must end, but this event has to be taken forward elsewhere. 2 days of insightful, engaging and bold discussions by the panelists, equally contested and debated by the audience. My compliments to you all, and also to the Kashmiri diaspora watching through the live streaming from across the world. I also need to thank here to ArtTrack to having funded and to have allowed us to have this seminar on their behalf in BB Camp. And I also need to thank today the GOC Kilo Force, Commander 7 Sector RR, for having organized the entire structure the way you have done. I think it's come out with valuable lessons. Thank you so much. Many lessons have emerged today, and I will request you all, the future of Kashmir, to take it forward. Take the debate on subject outside. Few will hate you, but there is a silent, sane majority across Kashmir. Trust me, I know them, I engage with them on the daily basis, who will really appreciate your effort and may finally find a voice through you all. Just remember, killing expendable terrorists is not the way towards durable peace and prosperity and the life which we want, free from fear. Neutralizing the effects of this curse on the Kashmiri society in form of overground workers is the only way forward. We need to take this water out to ensure that our peace returns in durable form. I hope the silent majority finds its voice to protect its children and the future of Kashmir. We need to introspect what DGP Saab said, that why a father today is scared of his son. It is important by using the informal methods to ensure the social harmony returns and the love of a father and son comes back into the homes of the families of Kashmir. It is time, again I repeat, the DGP Saab who is not here, it's time for Charcha, Chintan and Chinta. This, ladies and gentlemen, you have to take it out. Number of people have said, why is it happening in BB Camp? We can only give you ideas. We can give you direction. We can give you voice. It is up to you now to go back into the districts and take the voice forward. I can assure you, you will be heard. Tausif Rana, so many others have actually come out from the same environment, fought elections, are leading themselves without going on to the so-called mainstream politicians or political parties and the groups. I am sure that you can carve a niche for yourself, come out as future leaders. You are the leaders of future of Kashmir. I also want to just talk a few things that we here in Kashmir, including the Kashmiris, need to see their future from the prism of global events. The same mobile that offers radical and provocative content also gives an insight into important developments. I'll draw attention to a few of them. Quite a few of them are referred here as well. If religion was binding factor, why are thousands of boats of migrants moved towards Europe? So many sink, so many die. But they are all moving from one direction to another. The reverse is not happening. The second issue is that across the border, lynching or bombing of non-Muslims, including, I'll say, at the cost of annoying Zaved, Shias and other non-Muslims as per them, may be fine. But why is their army bombing their own people through air and arty shells if religion was the binding factor? How can captains whose ships are sinking going to assist us in Kashmir, especially when they are deliberately destroying their own communities and own country? We are watching it. It is there. You need to read, you need to listen to them and to understand what's happening. Is Kashmir the real objective of the so-called Friends of Kashmir? Or it is sheer revenge as has been proclaimed quite openly by our inimical elements? You need to ask these questions. You need to find answers. This is actually staring at you. And I'm sure the wise and the yet the silent majority referred here may be able to contest the nexus which is set on destroying Kashmir, its youth and its unique culture as stated by Aarti and so many others of 5,000 years and more. The second issue I want to inform you and through you is the myth of positive image of being a terrorist and pride of being an OGW through a recent event. A Haidarpura operation took place, we all know. It provided an opportunity for many to take center stage to polarize Kashmir again. But few interesting points which emerge I want to put forth for you to carry home. And this I address towards the terrorists who are working, the local terrorists, the prospective terrorists, OGWs and their families. The first is, ladies and gentlemen, no one claimed the body of that Pakistani terrorist who died miserable and anonymous. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Just a number for his masters across who are living in comfort elsewhere. The second very interesting factor which emerges, and you must have seen in the videos, in the channels and Twitters, the family members of Amir, Mudassir Gul, who was actually shot dead by the very person whom he fed, took care of. Altaf, the building owner, who was used as a shield by the very terrorist to save his own life. All the family members went to the media and said that they were not terrorists, they were not OGWs, they were not supporters. They have contested, they have defended the innocence of these three people. What the message is? That no one wants a terrorist and OGW in his family. Technically, they should have come out that Zihad, we are martyrs. My son, my brother, my father has died for a cause. Not one came out like this. Everybody said that my father, my son, my brother is innocent. It's a revealing fact. Nobody wants a terrorist or claims to be publicly that I am an OGW in public domain. That's the nature, that's the message which needs to go out. Those who have lost their children as a terrorist are today forgotten. Family may claim due to compulsion that today is my martyr, shaheed hai, cause ke liye. But the fact of the matter is, nobody comes calling, nobody looks after them. They are just a number again for the people who have been controlling the narrative. That's all. My third message is to the women of Kashmir, and many of you are sitting here, the 50% of the population, take charge of your children, your brother, your father, before it is too late. Get them in case you feel they are going astray. We will talk to them over noon chai and try and convince them that which is right and what is wrong, if you are not able to do so. But I am sure if you take up upon yourself, you will be able to show them the right path. It is only you who can control destiny for a modern and the joyous Kashmir. Because as we have seen here, women coming out and speaking, you are much more bolder, you are much more modern, and you truly love your family and your near and dear ones. Men are not so bold. They will be always cautious and they'll be always controlled. It is only, I find, a woman can speak her mind absolutely openly and candidly. See across, as Meher says, across the fence. the state of women, they are dragged publicly, they are burnt, they are exposed, put naked cross. Is that the future we are looking for our women in Kashmir? Is that what you want? You have to just ask this question yourself. Don't allow your husbands and sons to go on a path which will eventually lock you inside and disallow the civil society the benefits of your thoughts and actions. We are living in a modern global world. The entire world is going in one direction. Ensure that you also follow the same correct direction and don't go back on the path which is being called upon by the enemies of Kashmir. Time has come for the civil society to call out the overground workers in the open who were exploited last 3 decades and more of conflict to make big houses, grab properties and land of state, get jobs for themselves and their families and favorites in the government, develop great businesses for profit, send their children outside Kashmir and abroad for better prospects at the cost of the blood of young Kashmiris, and even I include the Pakistani terrorist. That Pakistani terrorist who's killed is no one's baby. We need to ask them as to when their son or brother is going to pick up the gun and lay down their precious God-gifted life for the cause which they are perpetuating. The silent majority, working hard and toiling daily, needs to call them out. That friendly neighbor who actually preys upon the young one to join the ranks of terrorists. Thank you so much for your immense contribution. I am so grateful. You have been absolutely open and you have actually put us to account to do much more here and after alongside you to ensure that Kashmir returns to its greatness which was seen some decades, some centuries back. As the year of 2021 comes down to an end and a new year of 2022 beckons us, I, on behalf of Chinar Corps, wish you all and all the people of Kashmir peace, prosperity and joy of life in the year of 2022. May the problems of COVID, the closed mindset and the curse of OJW is rid of Kashmiri society. God bless. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Subscribe Asian Mail, press bell icon, never miss an update.